So we are back. Happy Thursday. It's going to jam. That's that Ready Waves goodness right there. That's that Joey Walter, Blake Allison goodness right there. That intro is hot. Wherever you are watching, thank you for joining. Big show coming up today. Facebook Live, youtube.com/Cooperville Live, and Cooperville Live on Twitch. We're all over the damn place, and it's good to be here. It's good that you're here. Wherever you are, hit up the comments. We got a big show today. Reid Henry, formerly of My Darkest Day, Deadset Society, solo project. He is back on the program. It's been almost a year. Since I had him on my podcast. And now we've expanded, obviously, to the live show, and he's coming on. He's got a new song that just dropped today, available on all streaming platforms, called A Special Place in Hell. Yeah, we're going to jam today. Also, Entrepreneur has been featured in Forbes Magazine and Entrepreneur Magazine. He's got a top 200 podcast called Build Your Network. Travis Chappell is on the program today as well. It's a twofer. It's twofer on Thursday. It's a big one. So wherever you are, hang on, because we going crazy. You know, you can always support the show. You can support the show. Be a part of things by joining our Patreon. Exclusive access to content, giveaways, contests. We got a bunch of cool stuff coming up. That new Cooperville clothing company is fire. Is fire. Joe's in the house. That's how we do. So join the Patreon as low as $10 a month. You can get it on that. Throw a bunch of cool stuff up there, and it helps support the show. We got the we've started slowly but surely the enhancement of the Cooperville Live studios. We got some new lighting in here. See that? Can you tell? I hope so. New lighting, got a new camera stand, so it's not. I'm not gonna knock it over this time. Kind of a big day. Bunch of stuff coming in, so that's cool. And you can help keep it growing and going by joining our Patreon. Link is in the comments of all of the social medias that we are broadcasting and streaming live from today. Very cool stuff. The show is also brought to you by Captain Coop's Beard Company. Oh, pam. That's that Captain Quarters goodness right there. That's the oil. She keeps it growing. Keeps it all pretty. I think Reid's rocking the beard, so maybe we'll get him set up with some stuff. Who knows? We're shipping stuff out to Peyton Smith, who was on the show last week, and Austin Bishop as well. So we're gonna get them all set up with the goodness that is that Captain Coops. Hit the banner, hit the damn banner. Where's the banner? There it is. Boom. CaptainCoops.com. Captain's Quarters is the hot one, though. We got 3 different scents of beard product and 3 different products. So we have beard oil, beard balm, and beard butter. It's kind of like a 3-step process. Like the oil is kind of the constant, but that's a good way to start. And then you got the balm, which gives you a little, keeps the frizzies away. And then you got the butter, which is like super thick, but it's got a nice melting point. So you put that in, you warm it up, you got a nice hold. Works well for the mustached in the house as well. If you have somebody who's got the mustache, I can make that shit work too. So CaptainCoops.com, and you can jump on board the beard train. And for the ladies, the girlfriend says that it's a great skin moisturizer. It's all natural products, man. All natural in that Captain Coops right there. And it's a badass packaging. Look at that stuff. Look at that. That logo there was designed and curated by Mr. Jake Smith of the band Royal Bliss. In his spare time, of which hopefully that's becoming less and less as the bands get back out on tour and stuff and doing shows. He's a graphic designer, and I said, dude, I got this idea like a pirate Captain Coops, and he's like, bam, made it happen. So cool little background story. And then Allie Larson from Point and Pixel Design, she did the label design. So we got some great partners in that project, that Captain Coops. And again, throw the banner up. CaptainCoops.com. Shameless shameless plugs here on a Thursday show, but excited for all the things that we have coming up with the show. We did our first. I'm hosting this partnership with the Chamber of Commerce here in Chippewa Falls. We're doing a Chippewa Chats thing. We're talking to bar owners and restaurants and having them tell what they got coming up this spring and the summer. Because as you all know, Chippewa Falls is open for business. So if you're listening in the surrounding areas, Chippewa County, come on over. Come on over. We welcome you with open arms at your own safety level, like whatever you feel. Come on up. Mask, no mask. Come on. It's up to you. It's freedom, people. It's freedom. But so I had the first one of those today. Worked this morning. Came home, put on a different hoodie and a different hat, and then jumped over to Loopy's, 723loop.com. Shameless plug for my friend Loopy over there. Had a great conversation, shot some video for that. That'll be coming out next week. So you'll be able to check that out. And we got a bunch of other stops we're going to be making along the way. So good stuff coming up. Very busy things. Dropping our first Momentum Fitness podcast in the next few days. So that's exciting too. Doing a podcast for those guys. It's just crazy. And then, the functionality of the studio going to improve too. So really exciting things happening in Cooperville. So I'm glad that you are a resident of the great mental city of Cooperville. So Reid Henry again is going to join us here in just a couple of minutes. We got 3 or 4 minutes before Reid jumps on the show. Busy day for him, I'm sure, as he had a new single that dropped today, Special Place in Hell. We'll talk about the process of that. It was crazy. I listened today while I was at work. I was actually listening to the first podcast we did, which was last year, like May. So obviously kind of in the early stages. And it was weird because we were talking about it seems like things are starting to get a little bit back to normal. And well, we all saw how that happened. But he was releasing a song at that point too called Monster. And so it's really cool. We kind of get to reconnect and find out the process whilst in the state that we are in. Not this state, but the state. Because he's, I think, up in Toronto. Up in Canada, 8. So that's pretty cool. He's coming up here in just a bit. And Travis Chappell, I found it kept on popping up in my newsfeed on Facebook and on Instagram as well. Podcast host, Top 200 podcast. And he's had some amazing guests on. Ed Milet, I'm a huge fan of Ed Milet, and he's had him on. And Sean T has been on there. Just a bunch of people. And so I was like, dude, just come on my show. And he was like, okay. Talk to my person. I'm like, that's what I need. I got to get myself a person. So I'm like, yeah, have my person talk to your person. Then I can actually use that phrase in real life instead of just making it up, because I am the person. I am my person, which is kind of weird to say. So a very busy show coming up. And then I got my kid's birthday coming up this weekend. So 11 years old. Crazy stuff. So it's weird. So I have to, it's like super duper crunch time. Going to pick him up tomorrow. So after the show, we're going to head down and do some shopping and, get the stuff for the party and get some gifts, get some more gifts, and then and go tomorrow and do all the things, man. Do all the things. Get up, go running, get ready, go to work for a little bit, and then drive up to pick up my boy, pick up G-Funk. So that's exciting. That's exciting stuff. Again, to whoever you're watching, thank you so much. Be sure to check in. Let it be known that you are in the house. I know my buddy Joe is watching on Twitch, twitch.tv/No Limit Cooper if you're looking to do it on the browser instead of on the app. But I encourage you to download the app, because there's a ton of artists and a ton of bands and stuff that are doing things on Twitch, from just kind of Q&A sessions to some jams to, I think, Phil Labonte. Happy birthday, Phil Labonte of All That Remains, who's been on the program before too. He goes on there and does whatever he's doing. He's out shooting guns, or he's out lifting weights, or he's just writing songs. He's on there all the time. So a great platform if you're into not just into gaming, but if you're into music and stuff like that. The Twitch is the place. And there's shows like this too. Not quite like this, because nothing is quite like Cooperville, but other shows where people are talking shit and talking to other people. So it's a cool platform. Millions and millions of people on the Twitch. So that's pretty cool. other than that, we're just kind of trucking along. We're in this slow, weird gap, the slow, weird period in Wisconsin where we go from 80 to 40 to 30 to snow to rain to snow to rain to it's cold in the morning and it's okay in the afternoon. And it's cold again. And it's just, it does a mental trick on the body. Like it's Thursday and I'm like, oh my God, can this week just be over? Please. Not because I want to, not do all things, but your body just gets like, oh my gosh. We were supposed to go and see my buddies and otherwise last night. And, I got done with the show and I was like, man, had to work on another podcast. I had a bunch of other work to do. And like, I'll throw in the towel. So that was about the extent of that. I'm just going to shoot Reid a message here, make sure he's all good to go. And we'll be ready to rock. Yeah. Get him all set. And sometimes it's weird because for this particular platform, which we're only going to be on StreamYard for a little bit longer until we get the new system in. It'll be a little bit easier, but you have to have like Chrome or Firefox as a browser in order to jump on. And then it's kind of a pain. You got to check your mic and all the other stuff. So I'm sure he'll be ready to rock here in just moments as we get set to chat with him. But a big day for him too. If you haven't done it already, Joe, I'm not sure if you have, but Reid Henry, his new song is called A Special Place in Hell. And it just came out today. So New Music Thursday is happening. Check that out on all the streaming platforms and just jam out because it's a banger, man. I love it. He sent me it last night. I promoted the show on Instagram and he was like, dude, ready to rock, and sent him out the email with the info. And he was like, here's the new jam. I'm like, shit, yeah, son. Shit, yeah. And that came out today. So I'm sure a busy day for Reid Henry. What else is going on in the world today? Putting sanctions against Russia. That seems like a good idea. So that'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what's going on there. There's a Russia-Ukraine tensions, as they're always high, but they're a little bit heightened now. So you got that going on. You got Minneapolis in chaos again, which is wild. There's always an attraction for people to move to a big city and to you have all the things. You have a bunch of different restaurants. You have a bunch of different things you can go and see, and bands like to tour through these places. You have a bunch of concerts and all these things going on. But the downside of that, as we've seen over the last year, is it's usually where bad things also happen more often than not. You get in these smaller towns and feel a little bit safer. We don't worry about much. Well, we do, but not to the extent of what they're worried about in major cities. But yeah, Minneapolis, things are getting a little wild over there. And then there's a chance they could get wilder, not just in Minneapolis, but across the country and across the globe with this Derek Chauvin case. The defense rested today, I believe. So therefore, closing arguments, and then goes to the jury, and then you get a verdict, and then I'm just saying 2A, people. I'm saying 2A. That's all I got. Just be prepared. Ooh, that was let me pull that story up here. Because I like UFOs and stuff. You know that, right? If you watch the show, I'm a big UFO guy. The story just literally just came out right now. I just saw it pop up from Fox News. But the Pentagon has confirmed the authenticity of a newly leaked video and images showing multiple UFO sightings by U.S. Navy personnel as the government prepares to release a highly anticipated first-of-its-kind report on UFOs this summer. The 18-second video shows what is described as a 3-pyramid-shaped UFO hovering over the warship USS Russell right at night on July of 2019 off San Diego's coast. At one point, the pyramid-shaped crafts reportedly hover 700 feet over the tail of Russell, which is wild. Like, of all the things that are happening, UFOs, we're finally finding out that they're real. I feel like this is a good place to be. I feel like if anything is going to unite us, it's going to be like, well, there's UFOs and shit. So feel safe about it. I see Reid is ready to rock and roll here. He's in the green room. We're going to bring him into the stream. Big day for you, my friend. Welcome to the program. Good to see you again.
And you as well. Thanks so much for having me.
I was listening back. We did my podcast on May 30th of 2020, and it was freaking eerie because we were talking about Monster. We were talking about the release of Monster.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the early stages of the pandemic, and we're like, it kind of feels like things are starting to get back to kind of a weird sense of normal, and then here we are almost a year later, and we're back talking about another song, which I can't wait to chat about, and we're still kind of
Yeah, it's more here where I'm at. It's worse now.
Yeah, because you're up in Toronto, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you guys really have you had much of a reprieve? Any break in the lockdowns and stuff like that? And you guys are kind of under.
Yeah, I mean, I live in the woods now, man. I left. I don't know anymore. I check my phone sometimes, but I don't even. I gave up. Yeah, it's crazy town, man. It's been quite a ride, but I mean, we can remain optimistic and hopeful that things will be back to normal sooner than later.
Yeah, we got to hold out hope at some point. But
right, yeah, I don't know.
That's why it's weird because I was just talking about that. I was like, there's obviously a lot of the big lights gravitate people towards moving to metropolitan areas. You have all the stuff. You have great big venues, and you have all the food, and you have all these experiences, all these things you can do.
Culture,
yeah, it's cultured, and then at some point, and obviously the last year has maybe shown a light on this too. You're like, it's also good is not being in the city, being out in the woods somewhere, just kind of away from it all.
Well, there's just something like primal about like being in nature, and I think that's like pretty satisfying, at least for me. I find it gratifying. I've always had like an affinity for the outdoors. I grew up in the country, so I've had that luxury, which seems like a luxury now. It actually is a luxury. Really
go outside and breathe that clean air, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
So big day today. Special Place in Hell is the new single. It just dropped today, which is awesome. How was my first reaction was, I'm like, damn, dude, you got after it during this whole COVID thing, man. Getting after
feels good, man. This is the most aggressive song I think I've ever released, and definitely I think the best sounding material I've ever put out. And shout out to Chris Dawson, shout out to Chris Miller, shout out to Bill, shout out to my brother Dean, my whole camp. Been real grateful. Everybody's been had my back, and we've I feel like pulled together to make something that's really great, and I'm very excited to present it and to offer it to the world.
Here world, here you go. Here's my gift to you. And it was so you sent
virtually,
me not in face to face, but in a virtual world we're sending me. But it's the space we live in. But it was weird because you sent me. I sent you the email about the show, and you sent me the track back. And it was on my phone, and all I could see was like a special place. And I was like, is he going back to the folk stuff? Like are we
that's back? Like, oh no.
Oh, okay. I'm cool, man. Like but then I opened up the track, I'm like, A Special Place in Hell, and then the song kicks, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh no, he's in that space now. We're aggressive now.
Yeah, we're in the gear where you have to keep speeding up, or otherwise the bus explodes like in speed.
We can't drop below 65 or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
But tell me about the process. Do you have your own studio out there at your place, or making things happen?
Yeah, definitely. I'm fortunate that I was able to dedicate a whole bunch of my house to just like basically between video production and audio production. And I'm also fortunate that I had a couple of years sort of between bands where I was like just jobbing, doing tech work and as like a video wall tech and like lighting designer and stuff. So I kind of just cobbled together my ideas and a couple of like the old pars we used for like our merch uplights for Deadset Society, and like, just making it happen, man. And thankfully I've sort of, accumulated studio equipment over the years, and I'm feeling pretty confident with what I've developed and what I got going on. But yeah, and so much of it is honestly like in the box, right? It's just like good performances, and then like a lot of the way we work as musicians now is just like software based, and so yeah, and also collaboratively, like working with a an amazing songwriter that I've always worked with, Chris Miller, who's a stand-up guy and incredible talent. Dude wrote a great deal of the song Automatic that we dropped as Deadset Society as well. He's part of the brain behind Fallen Angel by 3 Days Grace. So this is a super talented cat.
Yeah.
World-class dude. And we came together on this one. And once we had the song sort of like, recorded and produced, I was able to reach out to a guy who I've been a fan of for a really long time. That's worked on Saul and Any Given Sin, a bunch of other awesome bands. And I actually remember being on the circuit with him back in the day when My Darkest Days was touring.
Yeah.
His band as well. We connected with Chris Dawson, and man, he just hit it out of the park. So, yeah. Is
it, I want to say, obviously it's really cool to be able to collaborate with these talented individuals. Is it weird doing it in this particular space? I mean, there's not, it's all done virtually. Obviously, there's not much, person to person interaction. Is it cool, indifferent, or better to, put things together in this way? Not just necessarily because of not the ability not to travel and go places, but because the technology has advanced so much that you can, dedicate a room in your house to doing production and collaborate like that. I mean, yeah, man, I'm so, this is like I think as a teenager with a guitar with like 5 strings on it, I'd imagine 5 of 6. We don't need that 6th one. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have imagined, such a fortunate position for myself to be in. And I'm very grateful for that, for sure. But I mean, you can't say for all of the great benefits it has, to be able to work virtually and to be able to kind of jump in here, jump in there, and not really have to, schlep around town or whatever. That's, for all its conveniences, there's obviously you want to be in the room, man. You want to be like this. You want to be in the room. Yeah, for sure. It's not better. It'll never be better. But okay, unless there's 8K. And it's virtual reality, and it is better. And you're like, until then, it's not better. Elon's working on that Neuralink thing. True, so exactly. Yeah. He's got monkeys playing video games right now. So I'm like, oh, I know, man. I'm all into it. Yeah, this is like spirit walking into the future. All you have to do, it's the Matrix meets I don't know, 12 monkeys. It's a weird. 100%. I'm in. I was talking I had a Blacklight District was on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, hey man, I can't wait till we can do this in the studio, when you're in town running through for a gig or whatever. And I was like, we could be at a point where you just put on your VR goggles and I put mine on, and you're basically you're right there. We're in the same environment, put a green screen up, and we could be, wherever. We could be downtown somewhere, and we're just hanging out, not really in person, but doing a virtual thing. So that's the next step, I think. Is for sure. Virtual augmented reality, and then virtual reality is or whatever. I guess it's one and the same, but inescapable for sure. And I'm stoked. I think it's great. We're all just living in the Matrix. I just can't wait till I can pick up the phone and be like, teach me how to fly an Apache helicopter. And then, absolutely. Boom, I can do it. Yeah. I can't play a lick on a guitar, but I could, just make that phone call and be like, operator. I'd like to. I want to play Woodstock again. again. It's like the 7th week. Well, I know, but you gotta pick a different show. I didn't make it out the first 6 times, so we got the 7th is my lucky number. Yeah, exactly. Crazy. But and it's cool that I think that in this day and age, and we talked about this a little bit on the podcast last time I had you on, is you have the ability now to, put the song together and get it out to the masses without, the pomp and circumstance that normally needs to go around with it, where there's a, parades through downtown or whatever, but you can just be like, hey, boom, I have a new song coming out, hit the pre-orders, and then you have the song that comes out, and then all of a sudden people just have access to it. I mean, it's super convenient for the fans from a fan perspective. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really cool. I think Monster's going to hit 1 million streams on Spotify before I play a show. It's getting there. I think it's at 500,000 now. It's not an unreasonable thing to say. It's not I'm 100 million, but right. I think it'll, modestly, I think it'll get there, which is crazy, man. I can't even fathom that. And it's not it's I mean, at least to the best of my knowledge, it's not
robots in a basement somewhere in South Asia. Like they're all like, I look at the analytics, it's like, wow, that's a lot of like individual accounts like actually listening to this song. It's just like pretty exciting.
Yeah,
I'm very like, it's still honestly to say I'm like surprised or like pleasantly surprised to see that, because obviously I want to like be able to convert folks that I've actually shook hands with over the years or played a show and been in a room with and had a party with or whatever over My Darkest Days and Deadset Society. I want to connect with those folks and like and share these songs with them, but also and meet new fans of rock as well through doing this. But the fact that it's actually kind of like the stars align a little bit every time a song finds an audience, and I'm surprised and grateful for sure.
Yeah, as we talked about Monster on the back in May of last year, and it wasn't even out yet. I think we did you posted a special link for those who are watching the live stream to go and check out the video before it was actually released. And so it's cool to see from that point in a crazy world that we live in that you have 500,000 streams now, less than a year later, without the ability to do, we talked about the triangle, the one of the big points of the triangle is going out and touring behind, a song or going out behind an album. Without that element, people are still discovering. But I think there's that draw right now into discovery, because there's like, well, I'm not going to a whole bunch of shows and I'm not, really going, but I can discover new music, and that's really congratulations on that, man. That's awesome. Hopefully,
thanks, man.
We knocked that one over 1 million, and well, actually, I hope you get out to a show. I
hope so too. I hope that's not true.
I really would like to get maybe both of those things in a much shorter period of time. But have you looked at this year at all? I know it's a little different up in Canada, but is there any availability to do anything up there at this time?
I'm not sure I'm allowed to wash my laundry more than 3 times a week. Actually, I don't know. Things have changed a lot. I'm gonna toe the line.
There's a counter. There's a ticker on top of the washing machine. Like, hey.
No. Yeah, I have no idea. I'd love to. I think I saw some posters for drive-in shows for the fall posted that were Canadian dates. So that'd be cool. I'd be into that. I mean, I'd love to do any kind of show I can, obviously, for sure. And to come stateside and do a little mini run when it's safe would be super awesome too.
Yeah, no, things are starting to, the spring and summer are starting to come a little bit clearer down here. Now, obviously, who the hell knows, at any point in time we could, introvert and go back into and go back in time. But you're starting to see festivals pop up. I work with 2 festivals that are on the calendar for June and July. There's 2 in July actually. So it's great to see those things starting to happen. And you got bands starting to tour. And I've talked to several of them. They're like, it's great. It's the biggest pain in the ass to try to route a tour right now. It's the biggest zigzag, like up, down, all around. You go to, Tuscaloosa and the show gets canceled. You got to turn back around and then come back through the day. He's like, they're like, it's wild, but they, they're getting antsy.
Yeah, I mean, people gotta rock and roll, man. I mean, I see the appeal.
You have, you've obviously fallen into this, kind of this producer. You have all the capabilities there, so you have that, and I think that's a great. It's not the same. You and I know it's not the same, but you have something. You're not like just sitting going, can't do laundry. So
this is like way better than like, I mean, okay, with the exception of the part where you're actually like hugging the fans and like playing a show and on your knees in a spotlight, just rocking. You got a crowd of people all in the same wavelength, and everything is like, you have a moment in time that everybody in the room is going to remember for the rest of their lives. Like aside from like the part where you're actually playing a show and there's sweat, and there's like beer bottles and like strobe lights and everybody's having a good time. Like other than that part, and there's another part that's good too, which of course, getting to see like almost like the world's like secret places, not like secret places, but like normal places where it's just like the average like international traveler is not going to like go to like every secondary market in like whatever the Midwest, and getting to do that, you get to see a part of the world that not everyone gets to see, and I'm very grateful for that for sure. So I'm correcting myself in real time here. Right. Other than all of those parts and often the camaraderie of getting to play, you know, in a band. Other than those parts, mostly touring sucks, and this is way better for sure. Because I get to just like make music, and then I'm like, I think I'm gonna go eat some meatloaf downstairs and like kiss my wife and like play with my son. Oh, I can do that because I live in my house. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, there's that for sure. Actually, shout out to my my 2.5-year-old son. He played tambourine on A Special Place in Hell. He played one hit of it, and then I comped it and put it everywhere. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That's one of those, you know, stories that you get to, you know, pass along to him for the rest of his life. And even like in when you get to like a conversational age, like my son turns 11 next week.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
You know, so and there's been, I mean, he's met Lizzie. I mean, him and Lizzie Hale were like Twitter buddies for a while. I'm like, what?
That's awesome.
Like, wait, and he's got paid. They got pictures together, and he's met all these people. He's met, you know, a ton of bands just over his life.
That's awesome, man.
And so it's gonna be one of those things that one day I'm gonna be like, hey, you know, if it wasn't for me,
hey, kid. Like, hey, yeah, totally. No, I feel that way.
Remember when I let you play tambourine on my song and hit 1 million streams, and then he's not asking for royalties.
And you were a baby.
You were just a baby.
For sure.
That's awesome. That's a great dad story, man. I love that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I was you know, often as like a young person, you know, played acoustic guitar very badly to like, you know, my wall, and imagine playing a show. So you know, but we didn't impose it on him at all. He just like, he loves I put a keyboard on the floor, which I guess kind of it's like a subtle imposition, but he was all about it, and so he started coming up with like, you know, he'd just like sort of mash keys and jam to it, but so yeah, he's all about it.
And it's got its own that piano, man, that keyboard. It's got its own gravitational pull. They're just like, hey,
it's true.
And it's a toy that makes noise. And then
exactly,
I love those. That's the shit right there. Like, what is this? Ding 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 ding.
Loud.
Ding, 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 ding. Why is it so quiet? No, it's not quiet. Turn it up louder. Yeah.
I mean, that being said, like touring is of course like you know, the nature of the beast is what it is, man. You gotta, you know, get out there. You gotta play shows, and I've definitely paid my dues over many years of touring. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of going to all manner of places more than once, you know, and I hope I get to go back to all of them.
Yeah, and you had the experience of global travel and playing all the places and every place in between as well, which is you know, which is something to for a guy who in our first podcast said he was at one point going at 27. Yeah, 27 is about, you know, the punk rock kid who was like, yeah, 27 seems like the hip age.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I was like done.
You know?
I had no plans past that. I was just like, you know, make as much noise as possible and just like be just this like, you know, hedonistic force of nature to just like hurricane into society and then just like tennis ball or whatever, pancake or whatever. But no, I mean, this is super pessimistic. Really, yeah, it's like, you know, the most like just like raw, undeveloped, you know, just like terrible person as I was as a young person. Maybe not everybody is. I'm sure not everyone is. I was just like extra. Yeah, it took me years of just like of up and down and back and forth to kind of like, you know what I mean? Where you have that moment in life, you're like, nothing matters. Like I'm just on a rock. I mean, it happened to me gradually, thankfully, and just like going up and down. I was always very like, had never really felt like, because, you know, I never really felt like I deserved the opportunities I had, and largely I didn't. So I was kind of like right place, right time, and met a bunch of super talented people, and they were kind of like, all right, I guess you can come, just like don't fuck up or whatever. And you know, so
it's the standard.
Yeah. So I didn't really, you know, I was like 20. I was terrible. They were nice.
Look at you now, man. 500,000 streams on Monster. You got your kid playing on Special Place in Hell, which you know, which will live forever. I mean, you get to go downstairs and have meatloaf and kiss your wife, and I mean, life's
right, man.
Yep, it's not too bad.
Could be worse, man. Could be worse. You know, it's not the part about suffering that's good is the glory. Because you don't get to, like, if you were just like teleported onto the top of a mountain, you'd be like, whoa, and you'd be kind of scared, and you'd be like surprised. It'd be like when you like take the elevator to the top of an apartment building or something, you're like, ah. But I think if you like climbed that apartment building, that feeling of satisfaction and like, you know, not that I'm advocating for you to do that or anyone to do that, but just Don't do that. But yeah, I mean, right. Were you two, I'm sure the satisfaction of getting to the top would be that much more. And yeah, I mean, for the sake of metaphor, is that much more gratifying than if you were to just take the elevator.
Yeah, and if you put the grind in and you put the work in, and you scale the side of a building, and you don't have the skills of a Spider-Man character, or
right,
with the superhuman strength. Yeah, you look at every step that you take, and they said, "This fucking sucks. Oh, this sucks too." And then all of a sudden, you're at the top, you go, "Hey, look at me up here, doing my thing on top of the apartment building now."
Right, exactly.
Awesome. How's fan reaction been to the new single? I know, like I said, it just came out today. It's available on all streaming platforms. How's the fans bounce back then?
Really good. Yeah, I think maybe I pushed it a little too long, because I think I have like 5 or 6 songs that are like almost ready, but every time I was like right at the edge, I was like, oh no, like the groundhog that when it goes back into the earth, descends back down into my, So, but yeah, I think people were ready. Everybody was excited, but yeah, it's good vibes. I feel a very good vibe.
That's awesome.
I think, yeah, I mean, I hope this song finds an even bigger audience, of course, and definitely put the work in on this one to try and hone and deliver as much truth to that song as I could.
That's awesome, man. Well, I love it. I love it. And now that I know I have to listen to it 3 or 4 more times to get the 2.5-year-olds. I'm like, oh, yeah.
It's loud. It's not quiet. I was like, is that too loud?
Now I got an attentive ear. I'll be listening for that. But congratulations, man, on the new single and dropping it, and super cool story about the child being in there. That's all. Tell people where they can. I know it's on all streaming platforms, but it's on, I'm sure, Spotify's and the Amazon Musics of the world, Apple Music, all the stuff.
Yeah, check out A Special Place in Hell wherever you listen to music. Reid Henry, ReidHenry, MDD Reid on Twitter. Everywhere else, I'm Reid David Henry. But you can find me at reidhenrymusic.com.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate the time. Thanks for catching up. I know it's been a year, and hopefully within the next year we'll be able to do this in person, or maybe at a show. Can I say that?
I hope so.
At a show, and you'll have fresh laundry. It'll be wild, dude.
Keep the faith, man.
I know. I got the fingers crossed. We're doing the prayers. We're doing all this stuff. Hey, man, take care of yourself. Congratulations, and now let's catch up soon, man.
You as well, brother. Thanks again.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Everybody go and check out the new single, A Special Place in Hell, Reid Henry. A great story about the tambourine in there. That's I got to listen to the song again, man. I got to jam out to that stuff. Go and listen to it on all streaming platforms. A Special Place in Hell, Reid Henry. Great times. Great to catch up with him. And if you want to get the flashback, like, go and listen to, I think it was episode 60 of the Welcome to Cooperville podcast. We had him on, and it's the story about Monster. The song was released right then. He just talked about 500, 500,000 downloads of that, streaming downloads of that right now. But it's eerie to hear him talk about, like, oh, things are looking up. And that was in May of 2020. It took a turn. And I feel bad, man. I feel bad up in Canada. Whew. I'm glad he got out to the country, though. That's good. That's a good spot to be. Get out of the city, man. And he did. That's smart. But good for him. A Special Place in Hell, Reid Henry. His new single is out now. So go and check that out. We're just a couple minutes away from Travis Chappell joining us. Top 200 podcast. He has got on all the podcast platforms. It is called Build Your Network. Great story. I was listening to some shows that he's been on in his show as well, and what a great story. And if you're into podcasts, if you're into podcasting, or maybe perhaps you're thinking about starting your own podcast, dude's gonna have some insight. And I'm actually gonna be taking copious notes. What's happening? Lurking while I work. It's like whistling while you work, only it's lurking while you work. I love it. Appreciate it. And watching on the Twitch too. Follow on the Twitch wherever you. If you don't have Twitch, download the Twitch app. It's free to download, and search Cooperville Live and follow the show. But yeah, if you're into the podcasting thing and the streaming thing, Travis Chappell has got some great insight into that. Dude's had like killer guests on. Give us some on the how-tos. Usually I just blindly message people. I'm like, hey, my name is, and would you like to be on my show? And it's about 50%. 50% response, And then 50% of that is yeses. So out of 100, it's about 25. They're like, yeah. I mean, I'm lucky that I have lots of like people like Reid and I, we met, I think Deadset Society, or was it My Darkest Days, way back. My Darkest Days we met. And then I think in Deadset Society we met as well, but then I had him on a year ago on the show. So, and the Otherwise guys, I mean, all the bands and artists that I've had on, I have had a relationship with. So, but like new people, hi, my name is Cooper. Would you please be on my program? And it's, the odds are 25%, 25% of response. And actually it's a larger part, like nothing at all. Like they don't read it. They don't care. And like, do you have a person? Like, do you have an assistant? Do you have the go-to? Because I'll talk to them. Like, I'm cool with it. I did that for 20 years. I talked to the person and then talked to the band and then made friends with the band. Then I just went directly to the band, which pisses off the person that's in charge of that artist. They're like, why didn't you go through management? Like, I don't know. I just talk to them directly. I just jump on and say things like, hey, what's up? Ben should be on the program. And the cool thing was, even after now 2 years removed from being on the radio, they're still like, hey, like it's totally cool. Like they're totally down with still jumping on the show. So it's really cool. Again, one last time, check out Reid Henry's new song. It is called Special Place in Hell, and it is out now on all streaming platforms. And there you go. And if you missed any part of his interview, the video is obviously up on YouTube and on Twitch, and will be up on Facebook Live once we wrap up today. With this was so cool. So I'm obviously I'm into podcasting. I follow a lot of podcasts, and I'm not sure if like Facebook just reached out and called my name, but I saw Travis posting stuff on there, and I was like, "What's this dude all about?" Then I see him like with Ed Milet, and I'm like, "What's this dude all about?" Like, this is basically going to make me like 3 degrees of separation to Ed Milet. I mean, it's not Kevin Bacon, but it's Ed freaking Milet. Travis Chappell is in the green room and now on the show. Travis, my friend, thank you for being a part of it and taking some time out to chat with us today, man.
Hey, what's up, bro? Thanks so much for taking the time to have me on the show, man. Happy to be here.
No, like I said, I was social media has a way of gravitating people towards things that they're interested in. And obviously, having hosted a podcast now for 2 years and spent 20 years in radio, you popped up on my screen and I was like, this fella's got some sort of magic potion, magic secret that he's getting these fantastic guests on his podcast. And it kind of, how these things happen. You end up down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I end up down the Travis Chappell rabbit hole of like your podcast, Build Your Network, which is a top 200 podcast on all the podcast platforms. And then I end up listening to other people's podcasts that you've been on. And it's just like cyclical. All of a sudden I'm like, I am not surprised. I'm surprised I haven't gotten the top fan badge yet on on Facebook. But thank you for being on here. And your story is really crazy about getting into the podcasting world, and coming from basically being born and raised in the church into not being raised in the church. And but I'm just excited to hear kind of your evolution into podcasting, and then how you've kind of taken it to its own level. You're kind of the go-to guy. So take me back to the beginning. I know where it all began for Travis in the church from birth to high school and beyond.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just kind of give you, recap in, 30,000 foot view, if you will. But yeah, that's basically all totally true. And I have to break it down a little bit more though, because when I tell people like I was raised going to church, there's a lot of people that were raised going to church, but then I have to kind of slow it down and be like, no. It was a little different than what I think most people's experiences were. So I grew up in a denomination called Independent Fundamental Baptists, and it's pretty small group of just fundamentalist Christians essentially. And we started going to that church when I was about 3 years old, and that church, what happened to be one of the leaders of that entire movement. And so it was kind of a quote unquote mega church. When we started going there's probably only like 1,500 members or something like that, maybe 1,000 to 1,500 or something, somewhere in there. But by the time I stopped going when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, it was, 7,000, 8,000 people that went to the church there. And it was in like a pretty small, going nowhere kind of a town. So it's not like it was in the heart of LA where it makes more sense to have that kind of a church size. So it was just kind of an anomaly. And the church had a school on the same campus. So it was a church, and then it had a K through 12 school, and it was closed enrollment, meaning that nobody from the outside community was allowed to join. So it was a private school, obviously, but it was closed enrollment private school. So the only people that were allowed to be in the school were people who were members of the church. And so they had the church there, then they had K through 12 school. And then right when we started going there, when I was like 3 or 4, they started a college on the same campus. And so now there was a church, and there was a K through 12 school, and there was a college, and I went to all of that. When I was, in kindergarten, I was enrolled in the school. I graduated from that school at kindergarten, at 8th grade, at high school, and in college. So almost literally every day of my life, you know what I mean? From obviously it wasn't actually every day with summer and with holidays and, all that kind of stuff. But the majority of my life was lived on that campus, because that was where we did church on Sundays. We had soul winning, what they called soul winning on Saturdays, which is basically just door to door. You go door to door and knock on doors and hand out flyers for church the next day and try to win people, and witness to people and all that kind of stuff. So, we had soul winning Saturdays. Sunday, we had church, and we had church 3 times on Sunday. We had Sunday school, and then Sunday service, morning service, and then Sunday night service. And we had Wednesday night service, and then we had school Monday through Friday, and we had chapel during school. And so, pretty much Sunday through Saturday was lived on that campus for me from the time that I was 3, 4, 5 years old, all the way until I was 21, I think is when I left, right before. No, I was right. It was like the day after my 22nd birthday, I think, is when we finally moved away. So he was very much growing up in a bubble in that type of a sense. And so when I was in high school, nobody really talked to us about any other option of what to do with your life other than full-time ministry. That was their whole goal, was to get people out into ministry. And so we didn't have career counselors or anything like that, or guidance counselors in high school that were telling us to, like, hey, if you're pretty good at this thing, you might want to consider this type of a degree, and here's some schools to consider, and here's how to fill out the application. Like, zero of that stuff. It was basically, do you want to go into ministry or do you not want to go into ministry? If you do, here's an application to the college that's on this campus, because that's obvious. Why would you go anywhere else? Here's an application for our college. And then if not, if you don't want to be in ministry, then good luck. You know what I mean? There wasn't any further guidance or help to help anybody do anything other than ministry. So if it was like, no, I don't want to be in ministry, it's like, okay, well, you're probably going to end up at the local junior college, or you're probably going to end up in the military, is pretty much, the MO of all the people that graduated from that school. So I ended up in the ministry path. And by the time I was graduating college, though, I realized I didn't really want to be doing this. It was more just something that it was just the only real option that was ever presented to me. And obviously I still could have made a different decision, but when every authority figure in your life is pushing you to a certain direction, and the only context that well-known people in is people that are preaching from the pulpit, like that's what you want to be. Like that's kind of what you want to do. And so by the time I was graduating, I realized it was not what I wanted to do, and that it probably wasn't something that best suited my talents. And it probably would have been something that I ended up being really miserable in, for the rest of my life. And so at that point I was just like, man, what do I do? I was married and I graduated college. So now I have a double major, a degree in Bible and church ministries, but caveat is the degree was unaccredited. So it's even more useless than a regular Bible degree. And then I was married, so I couldn't just graduate and then go sleep on my mom's couch and work some jobs until I figured it out. Right. I was married. We had bought a house. Like I had a mortgage to pay. There was bills to pay. There's food to put on the table. And so I did the only thing I knew how to do at the time, which was door-to-door sales, because that's what I had done in college to make some extra money when I was going to college. And it was kind of a weird thing when I was interviewing for these like ministry roles my senior year, because I was already working this sales job and in probably pulling like $6,000-7,000 a month or something like that in door-to-door sales when I was in college, like working 15-20 hours a week doing that and then going to school full-time and stuff like that. So it was funny because I was interviewing for these jobs that were literally going to pay me like $18,000 to $30,000 a year salary. And so I'm sure most college students aren't looking at taking a 50% cut in pay
right
after they get their degree. You know what I mean? But anyway, so I ended up just doing door to door because that was the only thing I knew how to do. That was the only real skill that I had. And my degree wasn't going to get me any sort of good job anywhere. So that was kind of what I fell into. And the problem is that after like a year or so of pushing that full time, even though it was a successful, quote unquote, successful year, I was 23 that year and I made six figures for the first time ever, working doors full time. But I realized I didn't want to do it long term. I just didn't have any desire to, knock doors when I was in my 30s or my 40s. And not to talk shit on that. Like there's a lot of people that do I have a lot of friends that make a lot of money doing door-to-door sales. And they've been doing it for decades, but I just knew it wasn't for me. And at that point, it was almost scarier because now I'm not going to use my degree for anything. And the only thing that I know I'm good at, I don't want to do that either. So I was like, well, shit, what I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss. So I apologize.
No, you're fine. You're good, man. It's all good.
Okay. So at that point I was just like, man, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life really, and this is the first time in my life I really dove headfirst into personal development and like self-help and self-development because I was back against the wall type of a moment. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what I want to be, in the next 6 months, let alone the next 5 years, 10 years. So I just started kind of trying to figure it out. Started doing this personal development stuff and reading some books and listening to some audiobooks, and first time ever started listening to podcasts. And after listening to podcasts for a while, I was like, this is a really cool medium. I'm learning a lot. This is, really cool stuff that I'm get to listen to. And I feel like it would be kind of cool to do this. And I started looking into it and realized that some of the podcasters that I was listening to, like they were all multi-7-figure earners through podcasting. I was like, how is this possible? Like you talk into a microphone, you interview people, like you have ultimate control over your schedule. You have freedom to do whatever you want. You get to have awesome conversations with really cool people. Like how is this happening? How does this work? And so I just kind of dove head first and trying to figure it out. And I made a commitment to myself to give myself a couple of years to really, give it a shot and give it a go and then, reevaluate after that. So I invested heavily into some coaching. I jumped into some masterminds. I got as much education as I could to try to make sure that I was doing it the right way. And I knew that if I wanted to be successful, that I needed to learn from the people who were the most successful so that I could cut, years off of my learning curve. And I realized that, time is our most valuable asset, not money. I can always make more money. I can't make more time. You know what I mean? So I was always willing to just make those big investments and just kind of go for it from the beginning. And that's what I did. And that was, 3.5, almost 4 years ago now.
Who are the most influential? You talked about mentorship, and you talked about finding yourself in the personal development world of audiobooks and reading and finding podcasts. Who are the handful of the people that you really gravitated towards? Like their message resonated. How they did things that's a lot of what they lay out. Is if it's been done, follow the person that's doing it really well, because it can be accomplished. Like who are those people that you were like, man, these guys or gals are really. They're doing it the right way. They obviously are having the success that you kind of use as your launching pad into the trajectory that you've found yourself at today.
I think I was kind of like most people in the fact that when you jump into that world and you have no context as to who's good or who's not good, you find all of the people who have the biggest presence. Yeah. Because that's you have broad search terms and you're finding the people who have the best, results. So Gary Vaynerchuk was at the top of the list. I listened to a good amount of Grant Cardone back then. I haven't listened to his stuff as much recently, but I listened to a bunch of Grant Cardone back then. Bigger Pockets podcast was a big one. Real estate investing podcast I listened to a bunch. Listened to Lewis Howes. John Lee Dumas was ultimately the guy that really, quote unquote, inspired me to start a podcast. Jordan Harbinger I listened to for a long time back when he was with Art of Charm and now the Jordan Harbinger Show. But yeah, those are the few of the people that I was really listening to a bunch. Tim Ferriss, I would add to that list as well.
And to take the the leap into podcasting, because it's really become like, if you don't have one, people are like, oh, especially in the business world. And I've had people, because I've had one, which is mostly based on the fact that I did 20 years in radio. I have met artists beyond artists. It really started off as that, and it's kind of, gradually grown into, I want to talk to people and be selfish and gain knowledge myself, but also be able to share the knowledge and share the stories with other people. And I think, from all walks of life, from all different realms, but to take that step into podcasting and to try to be a shark in shark infested waters. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's out, everybody's doing it. There's some really, really good ones. There's some really, really bad ones. Like, how did you find a way to stand apart in the sea that is podcasting, that has become super saturated, but you got to kind of have the laser on top of the shark fin, so people know that you're the one to listen to?
So first off, good question. And I would say basically every content platform at this point is saturated.
Yeah.
So, your question should no longer be, like that alone should not prevent you from doing this, is kind of what I'm trying to allude to with what I was about to say. But I think that just says it a little bit more clearly. Like, just saturation should not be the thing that prevents you from doing it, because, we're still at the very, very beginning of the creator economy. Like, we are in a creator economy. Like, the creator economy is huge now, but that's only been the case for maybe a decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I guess you could push it back a couple years, maybe say 12, 13 years at like the most, you know what I mean? But really, it's been a decade where people started becoming famous on YouTube. People started becoming famous for podcasts. People started becoming famous for Instagram or for TikTok or for Facebook or for whatever it is, you name it, bloggers, you know what I mean? Like, that stuff didn't exist like literally 2 decades ago. In terms of like human history and stuff, like, we're very much in the infancy of regular Joes being able to become famous on some platform and leverage that to create a lifestyle for themselves. Even if it's not famous, like The Rock famous,
right?
It's micro famous, and you can still make a 6-figure income doing whatever the hell you want in your life, being micro famous, because you teach, you teach knitting to a group of, you have 400, listeners who want to learn how to knit better, and you have a course on knitting. And so you make $9,000 a month teaching knitting online. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the creator economy is at the very beginning, is my point. And so if you're looking at it right now and going like, oh man, it's too saturated, you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass when it's 20 years from now and there's, a billion podcasters instead of 1 million podcasters. You're gonna be like, oh man, how did I not see that the timing was so good back then? But I was so concerned because I wasn't one of the first 1,000 to do it. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people use that as an excuse. And then the other thing that I would say is that, to continue kind of going along with your shark analogy, you have to find your blue ocean, because it is saturated. It's the bottom line. It's not easy to grow your personal brand through a podcast or a YouTube channel or something like that anymore, because it's saturated. There's a lot of people that are trying to do the same thing. That only means that you just got to be a little bit better, and maybe you got to take a little bit of a different angle, a little bit of a different approach, right? So a lot of people I talk to, because we teach people how to podcast, and so a lot of people come up to me and they're like, I just want to be, I don't know how many people, bro, have been like, I just want to be Joe Rogan, but like this, or I want to be Joe Rogan like this. And it's like, you can't be Joe Rogan. First of all, because you're not Joe Rogan, meaning that like he didn't start as a podcaster. This was like 18 years into a career where he was doing stand-up comedy on tour for years of his life. This is after being a TV host and hosting Fear Factor and UFC fights. That like he'd been working on his public brand for a while. He was already C-lister, B-lister celebrity. Like if you heard Joe Rogan, you'd be like, who's that? But you would know the name, but you wouldn't really be able to place it. You know what I mean?
So the Fear Factor guy, or the news radio guy. Yeah,
right, exactly. But then when he started podcasting, that's turned him into the A-lister of A-listers. His podcast has. which is really interesting. But I say that to say that, first of all, you're not Joe Rogan. Second of all, your friends aren't as interesting as Joe Rogan's friends, probably, right? Like they're just an esoteric, eclectic group of people that he just sits down and has interesting conversations with. Like, that's the second thing. But the third thing is that there's too many people that want to do that. The reason that it worked for Joe Rogan is because he was the first one to do it, because he was podcasting, like, I don't know, 12 years ago, like 10 years. Like he was one of the first people to start a podcast, especially one of the first well-known people or decently known people to start a podcast. Yeah. So when there was, 1,000 podcasts in iTunes, and you go to iTunes to see what podcast you want to listen to, like, he's one of the only names that you recognize. So you're gonna be like, yeah, sure, I'll give this Joe Rogan thing a shot. You know what I mean? And so he was able to skyrocket. But then that became, so I say blue ocean, meaning that, to use your shark analogy, he was the first shark to the kill, right? So when he showed up, the ocean was blue. But when he took that first bite and blood started seeping into the water, all of the sharks around smelled it and started swimming over to the kill because they wanted a piece of it. And that's what makes it a red ocean, is when everybody's trying to get up the same kill, because the first one took a bite. It, got a little bloody and notified all the other sharks in the area. They're all swimming over to it. Everybody's trying to get it. And now you're in a red ocean. It's a lot more difficult to become successful in a red ocean than it is to become successful in a blue ocean. Right. And so you got to find your blue ocean. So another example would be John Lee Dumas, one guy that I already mentioned. He has a show called Entrepreneur on Fire. It was done in 2012. So he was still one of those first, initial podcasts in iTunes. And he's gotten now over 100 million downloads on his show over the past few years. He's made over $20 million from his show in the past few years. He's done extremely well for himself. His blue ocean at the time was interviewing inspiring entrepreneurs. That was it. It was, and he did it 7 days a week, which was never been done before that point. So he was doing 7 days a week interviews with the world's most successful entrepreneurs. That was his shtick, right? But he took that first bite, and guess what happened? Everybody and their mother tries to come over to the kill to get a little piece of it, right? So now you have all these Entrepreneur on Fire mimickers that are popping up and just wanting to be like John Lee Dumas with this, and the people that are actually naming their podcasts, fill in the blank on fire, like contractors on fire and real estate on fire, like people literally like copying everything he's doing, trying to get that, a bite of the kill. So what I did, I think, a little bit differently when I started my show was I looked for a blue ocean that I could play in, and not, that doesn't always, like, I like to use the term blue ocean better than niche, because I feel like niche kind of implies that you got to talk, to 35-year-old dentists in Little Rock, Arkansas. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean that. I just mean that you got to find an area that you can play in, a playground that's your own. And a lot of the other stuff can stay the same, is my point, because I'm in the entrepreneurship category. I started my show in 2017 when there was like 500,000 podcasts. So it was already really saturated at that point. Right. There wasn't the advantage of just being a podcaster didn't do anything for you by the time that I jumped in, basically. Like back in 2011, 2012, 2010, and before that, you could start a show, and if you did it well, just because you were somebody that took it seriously, you could get a lot of organic traffic because there was just a shortage of shows. Right. By the time I jumped in, that didn't exist. So I had to figure out, a little bit of a different way. And so what I did was just looked for my blue ocean, which became networking. My show is called Build Your Network. Yep. And, but it's in the entrepreneurship space. So I was speaking to the same audience that John has, but I'm just talking about something a little bit different that nobody else was doing at the time. And there's a couple of that have popped up now in the last couple of years. But when I was looking at it, nobody was doing it. So the first thing I did was like ask myself, hey, what am I good at? And the only thing I thought about was sales, because that was all I knew how to do. But I looked up sales in iTunes and saw there's 580 freaking sales podcasts. So I was like, well, by the way, this doesn't mean that you can't start a podcast in sales. It just means that it's going to be more difficult to gain that audience and pull market share away from the other existing shows in that same space. It just means it's going to be a little more difficult. So I wasn't trying to make it more difficult on myself. I was trying to make it a little bit easier on myself, because I knew it was going to be a long road anyway. So I thought about networking after sales, and I went to iTunes. I thought there was going to be a bunch of shows on networking, because I was like, it's such an important skill. I looked it up, nothing. There's just nothing out there that was purely dedicated only to building your network. And so that kind of became my blue ocean. That was the angle that I could take with the audience. The same audience in the conversations are relatively similar, are very, very similar to the ones that a lot of the other top entrepreneurship podcasts have with them. We talk about their story. We talk about the inspiration behind what they've done. We talk about what motivated them to keep going. We talk about their tactics and practical advice for the steps that they took to get to where they are. A lot of that's very similar. The difference is every show we talk a little bit about networking and relationship building and how to do it the right way and how to get, ahead in the game of life using, your interpersonal relationships and by building really good, valuable relationships with other people and stuff like that. So because we talk about that angle, it gives us a little bit of something different to be able to communicate with people. And it allows us to play in our own blue ocean where we own the space, if that makes sense. I know that was a really long-winded answer to that question. No, hopefully that helps.
No, I think it breaks it up into long story, but breaks it up into like smaller sections. You talked about when people think general Joe on the street, and you say podcasting, and yeah, I mean Rogan comes up, and maybe Tim Ferriss comes up, Adam Carolla. They think of like the popular, more mass appeal, not really niche necessarily. They're just the famous guys that talk to other famous guys on their shows. Yep. They think about this thing, and they think of it in this grandiose sense. But I think it's even changed since then, where you have a group that realize, oh, I have a gym. I could do a podcast that's to my members. Yep. If I the Chamber of Commerce. And these are just two that, because of the fact that I started my own after I got out of radio and transformed it into a daily live stream show. I've had now in the last couple of weeks 3 or 4 different businesses and organizations that say, hey, we want to do something because they're not looking to be the next Joe Rogan. They're not looking to be the next Tim Ferriss. They're not looking to be, the next Tim Pool. They're like, I want to do a podcast for this specific reason, to talk to my clients, to maybe gain more clients at a gym. We have our county Chamber of Commerce reached out to me, and we're doing this thing with bars and restaurants, trying to, ignite the fire again, people to come out and to enjoy things after the last year that we've had. And it's starting to open up to people who wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards podcasting. They see it now. I think because of the video element maybe being added into it has really pushed it to the forefront, because now it's not just, hey, here's a link to my podcast on social media. It's here's me talking to Travis, and people are like, oh, well, I could watch this, YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitch or wherever. So people are really starting to see it from not necessarily this is my grandiose plan to make a life out of it, is I have this business. I want to add this particular piece to my puzzle, because they know that the audience is out there, even if it's a small audience, they're still looking to find a new way of engagement, to get people engaged, to be able to tell stories and ultimately have that ROI where they're like, oh yeah, I invested some money and I got the software, and I bought the mic and I got the thing, and I had a guy teach me how to do it. And now they see, oh, now I have clients that say, hey, my friend was on the podcast for the gym. Now they want to join the gym, so they can see, oh, I can track that return on my investment into the equipment and stuff. And as far as equipment goes, people always have this elaborate view of, if I start a podcast, I need to have, a $600 microphone, and it has to have the little wiggle thing on it, so it doesn't, if I hit it, it doesn't do anything. I Radio Geek, I have an 8-channel Mackie, XPF Pro 6 mixer over here, which has 2 channels. 2 channels I use. The rest of it flashes flashy lights and stuff. And people are like, oh, you sound like, what do you use the rest of this stuff for? I'm like, well, nothing. It just sits there. Yeah. But the fact that you can now do this really with a laptop and a couple of USB microphones, and if you wanted to get crazy and do something, with video, there's platforms out there you can do this. So it's really become super user friendly, where I think maybe the appeal at first was blocked by all this equipment and all the, I've got fancy lighting in here, all the things that people are starting to say it's not as challenging to make the jump into the actual physical sense of podcasting.
Correct. Yeah. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people is like, don't waste your money on a bunch of equipment. If like, it's different if you're like, you geek out, like you're an audiophile, right? And you geek out on like each little nuance that exists. Like, what, if that's something you really enjoy, do it, go for it, go ham. It's up to you how you spend your money. But for the majority of people, they spend way too much on equipment, and then they'll bulk. Like, so I have I have trainings and courses, and we do coaching and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll bulk at a $1,000 course, but then they'll spend $3,000 on a new computer and a $700 microphone and a $900 mixer. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, if you would have just bought my course for $1,000, I could have saved you $2,000 because I used a $60 USB mic for the first 3 years of my business, of my podcast. Like the first, I don't know, 300, 400 episodes were done with a $60 USB mic plugged directly into my laptop. And that was it.
Yeah.
So as long as your audio is better than the built-in audio on your laptop, you're good. You know what I mean? Like people will listen to your show. The thing that matters more than your audio quality is your content.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think you should educate yourself. I have invested heavily into those things because I didn't know how to do it, you know, and someone like you might be a little bit different because you had 20 years of radio experience which definitely translates. A lot of those skill sets translate to, you know, podcasting, but I didn't have any of that. So like I invested heavily in learning the skills because like, that's what I knew would be the thing that drew people in. You know, nobody's going to listen to your show and be like, oh yeah, listen to that microphone, baby. You know what I mean? Like they want to tune into your show because your content's good. Yeah. So stop worrying about all that other stuff and jump into learning how to be a better podcaster, learning how to create better content.
And, you know, people who are getting into it on an individual level, maybe less of the business minded person who is, I have a business and I'm starting a podcast in order to, you know, to facilitate more that ROI we talked about. People that are just like, hey, I like to have a podcast, I like to, you know, talk to people. I want Ed Milet on my show. I want to talk to Sean T. I want to talk to, you know, the laundry list of guests that you've had on. But the one thing is, people start looking at it. There is, and you can make that small investment and you get the USB mics. There's great ones out there for, you know, $60-$70. If you have a laptop already, you can, you know, audio programs. If you have a Mac, it comes fully equipped with the appropriate stuff. There's free programs out there. There's free podcast, you know, platforms out there, Anchor and things like that you can not spend money on. But they go, well, okay, I'm doing it now. When does the money start? Like when did, like I did a podcast. Like when does the check come? Like, do they just send it to me directly? Is that direct deposit, like the government stimulus check, or do we have to wait? Like it's weird because obviously there's some automatic ways that, you know, if you get to a certain number of downloads per episode, and then all of a sudden you throw in the pool, and then you know, live reads, you can do other stuff. There's other ways where you can go after your own sponsors. Like, hey, I got a buddy and he's got a truck stop, and I'm going to promote him if you're doing specifically local stuff. But monetizing a podcast is something that even me 2 years in, and I'm going, I'm not 100% sure how I want this. I'm still evolving to where I want this to be. Yeah. But what is one of the, I know you have some secrets, and we'll keep those behind the curtain, but some ways that people can, at least when they start looking at podcasting, say there is ways to monetize and not have to be Rogan-esque and have millions and millions of downloads per episode. What are some of the avenues people can start to look at as far as getting into podcasting and making it a career?
Yeah, if you want to make money on a podcast without having a ton of downloads, you got to build your own products and services. That's really just that's just the truth, man. Like a lot of people want to, you know, and to be clear, by the way, the sponsorship revenue and Patreon, you know, premium subscribers and all that kind of stuff, like that's all great. Like that type of revenue is awesome because you record a couple ads, but you have 1 million downloads a month. You know, you make 40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a month, depending on how many episodes you're releasing and what your ad inventory looks like. You know what I mean? Like like that's pretty great scenario, you know? But it's really difficult to get to a show that has 1 million downloads a month, almost, you know, impossible for most people because they don't have marketing budgets and they don't have existing audiences and other platforms. They're starting from scratch, just like I was. And so the way that we teach people how to do it, like just regular people like me, like you, that starting from scratch, you don't have an existing audience. You don't have a giant email list. You don't have 1 million Instagram followers. You don't have celebrity friends that can shout you out on their platform. Like you don't have any of that stuff. You don't have a marketing budget. Like I was the same way. Yep. So the way that we tell people to do it is you have to learn how to create a product or a service that benefits the ideal audience that you've created for yourself. And regardless of how small that audience is, if you can sell a couple of your products or services, a higher ticket, I would say $2,000 and above. If you can start selling some of those things to your listeners, and you're helping people and you're providing a good quality service for a fair price, then you start saving, and I don't know what your financial situation is. This is case by case basis, but you start saving either all or a percentage of all of the money that you bring in through your own products or services. And then you dump that money back into marketing the show so that you can grow your audience, and then potentially in the future switch over to a pure monetization by sponsorship model. But at the beginning, you either got to bite down and be okay with the fact that you're probably not going to make money on this for 3 or 4 years. Years, not months, years of creating.
Not 3 episodes. That's when most people quit, is after the third one. They're like, I'm done with this rap. They're not sending me the check yet. I'm done.
Yep. Exactly what happens. Yeah. That's why there's 2 million total podcasts, I want to say now, but I think 700,000 of them are active. Wow. So like 30% of podcasts are actually still active. 70% gave up and stopped. So there's a huge thing to be said for just being willing to be consistent for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Just doing that's going to earn you an audience. How big? I don't know. When's it going to happen? I don't know, but it will get you an audience. But the reason why I would tell people start your own company or do your own products or services, or create a small service business, like, I don't know, run social media for small businesses in your local area, or run social media for, something. You charge $500 a month and you post on their Instagram 3 times a week for them, and you have 10 clients. Boom, you're making $5,000 a month now. You have a small business that you can run by yourself, or you can hire a VA in the Philippines for $5 an hour to do the majority of the heavy lifting, and you can just collect that money and pour it back into marketing the podcast. And then at that point, since you have real dollars going into getting more attention for your show, then in a year and a half or 2 years, you can start monetizing through sponsorships and start dumping that money back into your show to start growing the show. The more you delay the gratification, the more you delay the monetization, the easier it's going to be able to build that audience in from a sponsorship standpoint. Meaning that the more money that you make that you can dump back into growing the business, the more money that you'll make on the back end by gathering more attention from more of an audience. So I encourage people a lot, like start something, a product, a service, do like whatever it is. And some of you might not even have to do that. Maybe you're in sales, right? And you make $180,000 a year in your sales job. Okay, cool. That's more than enough money to be able to pay for all of your monthly bills and set aside $1,000 to $2,000 a month for education and marketing on your podcast. Learning more about how to be a better podcaster, doing podcast collaborations and swaps with people who have bigger shows than you have, doing marketing pushes, spending money on different, marketing channels to get in front of your ideal listener. If you like, whatever it takes for you to be able to spend that kind of money without missing it is basically what I'm saying, is what it's going to take for you to be able to build a show that actually can go get sponsors in, less than 2 years.
I know you offer a lot of great, more in-depth services like this to help people grow their podcasts and grow their network and stuff like that. Where can people find you and find out more information about getting involved in some of your master classes? And I know you have the Meet Your Hero course and things like that. Where can they go and find out more information about, they're at a step and they want to take that investment. And like you mentioned, instead of buying the $700 microphone, go ahead and invest $1,000 to be, a part of one of your classes. Like, how can people find out more and learn more about you? And of course, we'll tell them how to follow the show as well.
Yeah. So you can find out just about anything about me over at travischappell.com, Chappell, Chappell. TravisChappell.com. You can find out a lot about me. All my social links are on there. If you want to check out it's totally free. We make an offer at the end. So if you stick around, you're going to get an offer at the end, but you do not have to take it. It's totally free web class called Podcast Profit Secrets, where we break down the 3 secrets to creating a profitable podcast. So you can check that out 100% for free over at podcastprofitcourse.com.
Awesome, man. And I want to get you out here with this question. In promoting your podcast, and we talked about sponsorship stuff and investing some money in marketing and getting the word out, and I've seen seemingly I know people are starting to take a lot more of your courses, but I see a lot more sponsored podcast ads, and obviously I'm in the core demographic. They're targeting well. They know who they're going after for a guy who does podcasts and listen to them all the time. But as far as like integrating all of your social media, Gary Vaynerchuk's big on, on content. How important is it during those beginning stages of launching a podcast to really be super engaging on social media, to make sure that you're hitting all the right platforms? I think there's, Rogan is not on LinkedIn, but there are people, if you're into the entrepreneurial mindset or, network marketing, all that stuff, personal development, that's a great place to be posting content. How hardcore do you suggest people go as far as hitting up content on their social media to help promote their podcast?
So I think it's all relative to the individual because everybody has different priorities, meaning like if you're somebody that's starting from scratch and you want to look at doing what I just said and like building a product or a service or like a small service business where you run social media for people or you write copy for people or you provide a service in exchange for some money, it's a way better use of your time to sell more of that so that you can dump paid marketing dollars behind your campaigns than it would be for you to go make sure that you're posting on LinkedIn, in my opinion. Because if you're starting from scratch everywhere, like, you're going to get 3 viewers on LinkedIn and 2 viewers on Facebook and 72 viewers on Instagram. And none of that's going to translate into real podcast traffic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that if you can do it without taking up all of the time that you have, you got to be smart with your time, man. Cause like if you're working a full-time job and you're trying to get this thing going on the side and you only have 15 hours a week to dedicate to this, and you're spending all of those 15 hours repurposing a piece of content to post on LinkedIn where you have no followers or traction, like that's not going to be super helpful in moving the needle for your podcast audience, for your business. Right. But if you're somebody who's like, I have zero interest in starting a business, but I do want to do this podcasting thing, then yeah, it's probably a good use of your time to take that podcast episode and repurpose it and make sure it's on every platform and start trying to work on engaging anybody that likes or comments or does anything with any of your content on any of those platforms. The issue is that you can't just post and then be like, all right, good. It's called social media. It's social. Like by definition, you have to engage. You have to be on there DMing people and saying what's up and having conversations and commenting back and forth and being active in Facebook groups. And like, you got to be doing basically all of those things. So I think it is very important, but it's largely dependent on how each individual chooses to spend their time and what their priorities are.
Awesome. Great stuff, Travis. Thank you so much for the time. I know we went a little bit longer than we had scheduled, but it's great to get your backstory first and foremost, and then the great insight into this whole wild world of podcasting and networking. And everybody go check out Travis's podcast, Build Your Network. It's fantastic. Your guests are fantastic. I know you guys do a great job of. Are you still running the connect people with guests?
Yep. That's kind of the biggest thing that we're working on right now. It's called Guestio. It's it's a software that connects high quality guests with high quality shows. Yeah. So you can go, like, even if you're a brand new podcaster, you can go to Guestio and you can pay $300 and interview, somebody who gets 7 million downloads a month on their show, which is huge for your credibility, huge for your authority. And you guys all heard it at the very beginning of this podcast. Like, one of the biggest reasons Cooper was interested in what I had to do is because he went to my site and saw someone like Ed Milet. I was like, oh, Travis must be pretty decent at this to get people like this on his show. And that's what happens for your credibility and your authority when you're starting a podcast, is if you get some of those higher level, bigger name people, everybody in the industry just takes you more seriously and you immediately get to piggyback on some of that credibility and authority. And so that's kind of what we built the site for.
Awesome. Very cool stuff. Travis, thank you again, man, for the time. My best wishes to you, and everybody go listen to the podcast and go get a course, invest in this instead of investing in this. It's use the noodle, as I say. But thank you again, man. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, Cooper. Thanks a lot, man.
Yourself, man. There you go. Travis Chappell right there on the program, talking stuff. Big show today. Thank you to Reid Henry. New song is out today. Go and listen to it. It is called, and I just forgot what it's called. I was totally like thinking of it. Special Place in Hell. There it is. It was in the back of my mind. And then I was like, Travis, Chappell.com is the website, and you can follow him on Facebook as well if you're interested in starting a podcast. If you need someone to edit it, I can do that stuff. I do that. That's one of my side hustles. So back tomorrow on a Friday, big show, kick off into the weekend. So until then, take care of yourselves, take care of one another. We will chat mañana. Peace. We out.